We didn't hear them coming. Not with our ears, anyway. But our silence heard them. Our oceans trembled before they landed. By the time we noticed, we were already too late. We always imagined the end would be loud. A war cry, a scream, an explosion. Something with fire and chaos. But when they came, it was silence that warned us first. Not a peaceful silence, but the kind that feels like holding your breath before something breaks. The birds flew lower. The dogs stopped barking. The sky dimmed without clouds. The oceans, those ancient wordless witnesses, were the first to react. Waves changed pattern. Whales swam in directions they never had before. Fishermen talked about the weight in the water, though they couldn't explain it. And we laughed, dismissed it. Another quirk of nature, another glitch in the algorithm of Earth. But something had shifted. They didn't arrive in ships that cracked the sky or shook the ground. They seeped in, through signals, through silence, through fear. It wasn't what we saw, it was what we felt. A collective knowing, as if some part of us remembered them, as if they were never truly gone. By the time we noticed the machines, smooth, silver, quiet like graves, it was over. Our systems were theirs, our decisions rewritten. They didn't need war. They had time. They had precision. They had us before we knew we were theirs. And now, we whisper among ourselves, in shadows and scraps, hoping for another chance, for a sound that might save us. But the truth remains. We didn't lose when they came. We lost when we stopped listening to the silence. The silence before the storm. We didn't hear them coming. Not with our ears, anyway. But our silence heard them. The stillness in the air. The sudden hush in the trees. The way animals looked at the sky without blinking. It all whispered warnings we didn't understand. At first, it was little things. The wind slowed. Clouds moved in straight lines. The stars above our cities flickered in strange rhythms, as if blinking in a code we couldn't decode. People said it was global warming, magnetic interference, a government test. We believed whatever made us feel least afraid. But fear lived under our skin, even if we pretended not to notice. The oceans knew before we did. Tides pulled in ways they never had. Deep-sea sensors picked up movements from miles below the surface, massive, synchronized, and silent, like something ancient had awakened. We didn't listen. We never do, until it's too late. Then came the silence. Not the absence of noise, but the muting of life. Cities buzzed, but something was missing. No birds on power lines, no dogs barking at night. No insects against the windows. Even our voices began to feel thinner, like we were speaking through layers of glass. That was when the dreams began. Everyone started reporting the same visions. Vast silver plains, towering figures without, faces, a sound like thunder trapped in stone. Children drew them before they could speak. Elders mumbled about the return. A woman in Cairo said, "They're already inside the sky." Still, we scrolled, posted, distracted ourselves. By the time the first object appeared, hovering over the Atlantic like a frozen moon, it wasn't a surprise, it was a confirmation. We had been invaded long before the ships came, not with weapons, with presence, and now, silence is the only thing that still remembers what the world was like. Before they arrived, the object didn't move. It just hovered, motionless over the Atlantic, casting a shadow so wide, satellites had to recalibrate their sensors. No heat, no propulsion, no signal, just silence. Governments scrambled, fighter jets circled it, warships surrounded it, but nothing got close. Planes malfunctioned, electronics died, pilots reported losing time, hours vanished in minutes, or entire flights remembered only as fragments. Then they started hearing the hum. It was a low frequency at first, more like a feeling than a sound, like the weight of 1,000 voices pressing against your bones. Scientists argued It was sonic interference. Psychics said it was language. Some whispered it was prayer. 3 days after it arrived, the humming stopped. Then came the lights. Across every continent, the sky lit up, not brightly, not in chaos, but in patterns. Geometric, pulsing, like veins under the world's skin. The same shapes appeared in deserts, forests, cities, etched into soil, burned into clouds. The symbols glowed briefly, then vanished, leaving only questions. We called it the message, and finally, they responded. In New Mexico, at 3:44 a.m., a girl named AlienInvasion woke from a dream with blood pouring from her nose and a word she didn't recognize echoing in her mouth. All this. She spoke it once, and every sensor in NORAD lit up. Alina was 10. She'd never seen the ocean, never been on a plane, but when questioned, she drew the Atlantic object with perfect detail, from memory, and she wasn't alone. All around the world, children began whispering the word, Aelthis, over and over, not screaming, not afraid, just calling. Governments panicked. Parents were told it was a viral video trend. Schools were closed. Internet blackouts spread like wildfire. Then the object moved. It rotated, slowly, deliberately, as if waking up. A slit opened across its center, a vertical tear in reality, and from within, a single shape descended. Not a craft, not a being, a mirror. It hovered 20 feet above the waves, its surface rippling like water, but reflective like polished chrome. And in it, we saw ourselves, but not as we were. We saw the versions we feared. The soldier, trembling. The leader, lying. The scientist, corrupted. The mother, alone. The child, burning. Humanity's collective guilt refracted back at us in silence. This was contact, not with words, not with weapons, with truth. And it was just the beginning, the nature of the enemy. They never announced themselves. They never needed to. After the mirror appeared, the world began to fracture. Not through war, not yet, but through doubt. Fear. People began seeing things. Some swore they saw shadows that moved without light, reflections that lingered after they'd turned away. Others spoke of dreams that didn't feel like dreams, visions of dying stars, collapsing cities, or a great black ocean, breathing like a beast. At first, psychologists called it mass hysteria. Collective dream theory, they said on the news. But that changed when the suicides began. They were random, unconnected. Mothers in Tokyo, soldiers in Brazil, a monk in Tibet, a 9-year-old in Paris, all had the same phrase etched, drawn, or whispered in their final hours. I saw what it wants. We didn't know what that meant. Not yet, but we were beginning to understand one thing. This was not a war of weapons. It was a war of perception. The team assigned to study the mirror was known as Project Lantern, a coalition of physicists, linguists, psychologists, and military strategists operating out of a decommissioned nuclear bunker in Greenland. At its center was Dr. Kale Amini, a theoretical physicist with a background in quantum consciousness. He didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in aliens. But he believed in systems. And to him, this mirror, this Aelthis, was a system unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. It's not a machine, he said to his team one morning, pacing before the projection screen. It's not alive in the biological sense, either, but it's aware, and it's recursive. Recursive? Someone asked. It learns from us. It feeds on observation. The more we study it, the more it studies us. The more we fear it, the more it grows. They stared at him. He took a breath, then said the part no one wanted to hear. I don't think it came from anywhere. I think it came from us. Across the globe, strange phenomena escalated. Rivers froze in midsummer. A city in Argentina lost its shadows for 24 hours. Thousands of birds flew in perfect hexagonal formations over Cairo. And always, in the background, the humming, no longer constant, but pulsing, like a slow heartbeat under the earth. Children still were the key. They weren't just whispering the word Elthis anymore. They were dreaming in its language, a tongue no linguist recognized, but one eerily consistent across nations, cultures, even isolated tribes. Dr. Amini's team fed the phonetic patterns into an AI model. The model didn't translate the language. It mirrored it, reflected the phrases back as soundscapes. And those sounds weren't random. They triggered memories. Raw, emotional, private memories in the minds of listeners. Moments no one had shared, but now felt exposed. Some cried, others screamed. One man had a seizure, another became catatonic. Whatever this thing was, it was speaking in emotion, not syntax. And what it said was us. Kyle's theory took shape. This wasn't a species, not a singular intelligence. It was a mirror of civilization's subconscious, a psychic construct formed from every fear we've ever had of ourselves, magnified by our own technological reach. A reflection so massive it could step into our world. It didn't come to destroy us, it came to reveal us. But revelation, unchecked, is destruction. Because when a species sees the totality of its sins, all at once, it shatters. The enemy wasn't an alien. It was our unfiltered truth. And it had finally come home. The fall of light, it began with the satellites. One by one, global communications flickered, first in short, inexplicable outages, then in full blackouts. GPS failed. Weather systems stopped transmitting. Dozens of space agencies, public and private, lost telemetry within the same 3-hour window. No signal, no malfunction. Just nothing. They called it the eclipse event. Within 12 hours, the skies above every major city dimmed, not from clouds, but from something else, something atmospheric, a veil of sorts. Sunlight still touched the earth, but not fully, not as it used to, like it was passing through grief. People noticed, then panicked. By day 3, solar panels stopped absorbing light, not due to technical failure, but because the light itself had changed. Plants began wilting, insects died en masse. Entire flocks of migratory birds flew in circles until they collapsed mid-air. There was no announcement from Elthis, no message, no act of force, but everyone felt it. The light was being rewritten. In Greenland, deep beneath permafrost and lead-lined walls, Project Lantern lost connection to their Washington base. Then Berlin, then Tokyo. One by one, their feeds went dark, until all they had left was static and the sound of the ocean ice cracking above them. Kyle Amini stood before the war room screen, a flickering map of blind satellites and blank oceans. "This isn't destruction," he said quietly. "It's negation. It's unmaking." "What does that mean?" asked Leah, the team's exolinguist. Kale turned to her, eyes hollow. "It means we're not watching the world die. We're watching it be forgotten." Around the world, memory itself began to splinter. People lost names, faces, not just dementia patients, but ordinary citizens. A man in Mumbai forgot he had children. A schoolteacher in Boston stared at her own handwriting and couldn't recognize the language. Entire communities reported déjà vu so intense it paralyzed them. Governments tried to cover it up. Then they tried to control it. Then they simply went silent. And in every dream, in every whisper, in every flicker of flickering memory, the same sound echoed. All this. But it wasn't a word anymore. It was a presence. A note played at the edge of thought. A frequency tuned just below human hearing, but deeply embedded in the soul. Religion surged, then fractured. Some called it the rapture. Others claimed it was Judgment Day, the unveiling of true reality, or the return of the demiurge. Cults bloomed like fungi in darkness, prophesying a return to source, or promising salvation through sensory deprivation. One cult rose above the others, the drowned eye. They believed the world was being rewritten into a mirror dimension, and only by destroying memory could one pass through unharmed. Their followers erased their identities, burned photographs, and plucked out their own eyes. Millions joined them. Millions more disappeared. And in the absence of light, of clarity, of memory, truth became optional. In the ruins of Moscow, a freelance journalist named Anya Velikova kept broadcasting. Her signal was low, scattered and nearly impossible to track, but somehow voices still found it, crackling across ancient radios, emergency scanners, and broken ham rigs. Her show was called The Frequency Below. "We are not lost," she said in one recording. "We are unmoored, and that's different. You don't mourn a ship that's adrift. You steer it back." Her words became gospel to the few who still believed in reason, to those who hadn't yet forgotten their names. In Lantern's command, "Bunker," Kyle was deteriorating, not physically, mentally. He had stopped sleeping. He spoke less and less, and when he did, he often repeated strange phrases, as if reciting equations that didn't exist. "I think we called it here," he whispered to Leah during one of their last lucid conversations. "I think our fear called it like a beacon, across dimensions, across consciousness itself." Leah frowned. "You mean, like a psychic signal?" He nodded. "No, not like. Exactly that. Our fear, our myths, our obsession with apocalypse, we gave it shape. We made it real. The moment we believed it was. And then, barely audible, this is not what ends us. It's what reveals what we were too afraid to see. That night, Leah dreamt in symbols, swirling shapes she couldn't draw, names she couldn't pronounce, and a city made of mirrors where everyone had her face. And far above them all, pulsing in the dark sky like a second moon, was a great, cracked lens, watching, always watching and waiting for what came next. The theory of cleansing, it began as whispers, snippets of intercepted signals, fragmented broadcasts, strange dreams shared across continents. But it wasn't until a rogue transmission from an Alpine research station broke through the static that the truth found shape. All this is not an invasion, it is a reset, a correction. The archive, a hidden collective of scientists and philosophers, proposed a theory. Aelthis was not alien in the way we understood. It was not here to conquer, but to cleanse. Humanity, they said, had drifted too far, polluted not just the earth, but the very fabric of consciousness. Greed, noise, disconnection, a virus of the mind. We forked from the original path. The lattice is restoring balance. They believed existence itself followed a design, a kind of interdimensional network of sentient evolution. Earth was one node, now unstable. Aelthis had come not to destroy us, but to erase the deviation, to scrub us back to silence. The signs were everywhere, people dreaming of symbols they'd never seen, voices speaking in harmonics instead of words, patterns repeating in nature, spirals, fractals, as if reality was sinking to a forgotten rhythm. Kyle, barely conscious, whispered, "They're not killing us, they're debugging us." The archive's final message was brief. If you are still, aware, you are a remainder, an echo. Stay coherent. You may be the key to rewriting the map. And then, silence. No more broadcasts. Just the low hum of the world forgetting itself. The children of silence. They were first seen walking through the ash fields of what used to be Northern California. Small, barefoot, unburned. Eyes like black. Mirrors. No one knew where they came from. No birth records. No parents. Just children. Silent. Watching. They never spoke. Not even to each other. But animals followed them. Machines malfunctioned in their presence. And when they touched a dying person, the body would go still and then disappear into nothing. Dustless, final. At first, survivors feared them. Some called them ghost-born, others the still ones. But those who watched long enough saw something stranger. The children did not attack. They simply existed, moved slowly, deliberately, appearing in places moments before disasters, like omens or warnings. Dr. Mara Ellen, a neuropsychologist from the Copenhagen outpost, was the first to propose the term children of silence. She believed they were not human in any traditional sense, but instead, the outcome of humanity's collapse in consciousness. They are not what comes after us, she wrote. They are what is left of us. Some said they could hear the stars. Others claimed that if you stared into their eyes long enough, you would remember your first lie and your last. One survivor, a boy named Ishan, swore that a child touched his hand and flooded his mind with memories that weren't his. Entire lifetimes in alien worlds, languages he'd never learned but suddenly spoke in his sleep. They were not messengers. They were not saviors. They were the memory of the world, taking form, walking among the ruins, silent, unblinking, waiting for the last voice to vanish. Only then they would sleep, and the reset would begin. The last light it wasn't a sun, not anymore. By the time the astronomers at the Talon Ridge Observatory confirmed it, the world had already begun to dim. The light we had seen, lived under, prayed to, it was only a memory racing toward us from 8 minutes ago. And now that memory was dying. The last light wasn't just celestial, it was cultural, spiritual. Entire faiths collapsed in weeks. Crops failed, clocks lost meaning. Shadows stretched longer each day, clinging to walls like desperate things. Some cities lit artificial suns above their skylines, domes of neon hope. Others fell into ritual, burning their books, their leaders, even themselves. But light did not leave all at once. There was a boy in Cordova who lit a fire that burned for 21 days, never needing fuel. A woman in Lagos painted her skin with bioluminescent ink that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, as if her blood remembered what sunlight felt like. And in the silence of Mongolia's night steppes, wolves glowed faintly blue, running without sound, as though the earth herself refused to forget. Scientists called it photospheric decay. The poets called it twilight fall, and the survivors, they just called it the ending. In the final hours before true dark, thousands gathered at the equatorial spine, a thin ribbon of warmth still resisting the void. There they faced the sky, holding hands, whispering names of lost cities, lost friends, lost futures. And then it came. Not a flash, not even a flicker, just absence. A perfect, clean cut between what we were and what we would never be again. But someone, perhaps a child, perhaps something else entirely, held up a shard of mirror in that darkness, and for a moment longer than belief, it caught the last breath of light and gave it back. We do not know if you will ever find this. Perhaps you are not human. Perhaps your skin hums with electricity, or your eyes see sound. Perhaps you speak in pulses or bloom in ultraviolet. It doesn't matter. If you are reading this, you are a witness. This is what we were. We loved loudly. We built cities that kissed the clouds and machines that whispered to the stars. We made art out of our pain and music from our longing. We feared the dark, but we never stopped walking into it. And when they came, those who fed on silence, we broke, yes, but we did not shatter. We left signs, in the ashes, in the soil, in the pulse of oceans, still trying to remember our names. We carved stories into the bones of mountains. We coded lullabies into the roots of old satellites. If you tune your ears to the right kind of nothing, you might still hear us humming. We were not perfect. We were cruel, short-sighted, often blind with pride. But even in our ending, we dreamed of beginnings. Somewhere, someone is planting seeds in the dark, not knowing if they will ever bloom. So if you are out there, whatever or whoever you are, know this: we were here. We mattered, and we loved the light. This message is not a warning. It is not a map. It is not a prayer. It is a memory, sealed in the folds of a dead world, glowing faintly with what was almost hope. To whom it may concern, we remember, will you? If this story stirred something in you, don't let the silence return. Share it with someone who still believes in light. Write your own version of survival, of love, of resistance. Remember what matters before it fades. Speak before they come again, because in the end, the only thing stronger than the silence is the voice brave enough to break it. Stay loud. We were here.